Are you talking shift? We are. It's time for the We're Talking Shift podcast. Now. Here to talk shift, Laurie Bischoff. We're Talking Shift.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 80 of We're Talking Shift, the podcast where we talk a lot of shift because when we feel stuck, if it's time to level up, rise to a challenge, or make any kind of meaningful, effective change in our lives, we have to shift. And the first step in that process is to shift our thinking. That is the antidote to feeling stuck. On today's show, we're going to talk about the cocaine of food. Yes, we're talking sugar, folks, sugar. Now, unless you live in a remote cave somewhere, you know that the overconsumption of sugar is unhealthy. And, well, that's just putting it mildly. But, you know, I'm not really a fan of putting important things that affect our well-being mildly. So let's get really real and let's just call it like it is. It's way beyond unhealthy. It's downright destructive, and it's ruining human health across the globe. Yes, sugar in all its glorious disguises, and there are many. It's making people sick, from the elderly who are suffering in record numbers from Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, which they're showing to be definitely sugar can be a cause of that, a lifetime of eating too much sugar. From them to children who are now the fattest generation of kids to ever exist in America, to everyone in between struggling in record numbers, from type 2 diabetes, obesity, cancer, heart disease, and a host of other diet-related illnesses. Now, I really, really want you to understand why sugar is the cocaine of food. So I've invited nutrition and weight loss expert, Dr. Loree Schemic, to join us today, and we're going to break it all down for you. Now, Dr. Loree is the award-winning, best-selling author of How to Fight Fat Inflammation and Fire Up Your Fat Burn. She also wrote The Beginner's Guide to Intermittent Fasting. She's a leading authority on inflammation and its role in weight loss, preventing disease, and optimizing health. Dr. Loree has been a featured guest health expert and contributor on numerous magazines, radio, and TV shows like Dr. Oz, The Doctors, CNN and Fox News, and a bunch of others. So I am thrilled that she took some time to hang out with us today. Dr. Loree, welcome to We're Talking Shift.
Well, thank you, Laurie. It's so wonderful to be here with you today. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Yes, I am thrilled. This is a big topic. I am sure that this is a big part of what you talk about working with your clients on inflammation and weight loss and all of that stuff, because as you know better than me, I'm sure, sugar is the hidden culprit in so much of our health issues. It's because of the sugar that's hidden in the food, right?
Yes, absolutely. And, and that's a really important point to start out with, because so many people do not realize they're ingesting so much sugar. So you think back to the year 1700, the average consumption was about 4 pounds of sugar a year, right? Then 1800, it was about 18 pounds of sugar per year, and you jump to 2018, and it's 156 pounds of added sugar a year. And that's just added. It's not, it's not inherent with the natural food. So the reason for that is the food manufacturers know that we are hardwired to love sweet things, and it's becoming even worse. And so they put sugar in everything, so we'll buy everything. And and so when
well, I was going to say, I think I read that, 80% of our food products have sugar, some form of sugar in them, added sugar. Yeah.
Isn't that sad? And that's what, it's interesting because when I speak to people, I talk about this problem. People are frustrated. They're frustrated because they don't have any energy. They're frustrated because they can't lose weight. They don't understand why they're not losing weight. they're not eating sugar directly. They're not eating candy bars or any type of desserts or anything like that. But they don't realize that, for example, they think they're going to the grocery store getting healthy food, such as whole wheat bread. Well, two slices of whole wheat bread can bump up your blood sugar by as much as 2 tablespoons of sugar, and those fruited yogurts have more sugar than a candy bar, and sodas, for example. Now that's a direct main line of sugar. 10 to 15 teaspoons of sugar in 1 can of soda.
That's so disgusting.
It is. And can you imagine sitting down at the table eating 10 to 15 teaspoons of the white granulated stuff? And you just wouldn't do it. Most people would never do that. And so it's simply liquid sugar, and it's the worst form of sugar. It's high fructose corn syrup, which we can get into in a little bit, but it's metabolized by the liver, okay? And that's really bad when that happens.
Yes. Yeah. So, and I want to talk about that in just a few minutes for sure, because I think, in fact, we're gonna lead into that right now, because I think it's really important for people to understand what happens in your body. How the body processes sugar. If you don't understand, when you swallow that stuff in any one of those, hundreds of different forms it can be put in your food and hidden in, you eat that, and then there's a process that your body goes through. And I think if people can understand the how and what's going on in there, it's just, it's more helpful for them to be able to make a wiser choice when they understand what is going on very specifically.
Yeah, it's really important to know, so there's most of the sugar that's added is in an unnatural form, right? Our body, it's a man-made form. Our body doesn't really know what to do with it, such as sucrose or that high fructose corn syrup I just alluded to. It's not healthy. And so in terms of fructose, it is metabolized by the liver only. It's the only sugar that is metabolized by the liver. And so you don't get that bump in blood sugar, but it's still, it disrupts your satiety signals. So even if you're eating, not whole fruit, but fruit juice and whole fruit too, if you eat an excess amount of any type of fructose, you're going to have trouble. And the liver can only hold so much sugar. The cells can only hold so much sugar. And as I just mentioned earlier, the amount of sugar people are ingesting is enormous. It is truly outstanding. And so when this happens, when the body can't store any more sugar, the liver turns it to fat. And what we have now is a fatty liver, which means that if you're overweight and you're not losing, and you're having trouble losing weight, your liver can't do its job of burning fat. It's your largest endocrine organ and your number 1 fat burning organ. That's how important really paying attention to your sugar ingestion is, because it's not just about the weight and how you look. It's about that liver not functioning optimally in many cases. So it's not doing its job of detoxing and filtering out toxins, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because it is really important for people to understand that there's one way of gaining weight where, maybe you're taking in excess calories and excess sugar, and maybe it's just sugar, white granulated sugar. And so you're ending up, with an excess of fat. And so you're getting fat all over. But then there's this other kind of fat that is, what is it? Not that, like the adipose tissue. What's the other word I'm looking for? The stuff, it's probably like the fatty liver, and the liver or the fat around your organs. And
the visceral fat.
Yes, thank you.
You're
visceral.
I
was like, I know it starts with a V, but it's that fat, and that kind of fat.
That's the inflammatory fat. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so dangerous. People just don't understand that it's not just about, the weight and trying to find that healthy weight so that you look good and you have more energy. It's beyond, it's that too, but it's
much
also
beyond that.
Yeah, much beyond that, the dangers of your organs not being able to function properly and be literally just being completely, not necessarily destroyed, but not able to function properly and ruining your health.
Exactly, and that's a good point, Loree, because when we eat inflammatory foods, which most processed refined foods, as you mentioned, 80% of all the foods that are processed and refined have added sugar in them, right? And it's not healthy sugar, and so it's doing a double whammy in that it's bumping up your blood sugar level, and it's also harming, creating more visceral fat. That's the fat, the abdominal fat, essentially, where it's inflammatory. It's the worst kind of fat you want, on your body, because it generates that inflammatory signaling. And so, what we need to do is really pay attention to added sugars. But, a lot of people don't understand it's an inflammatory cascade when they ingest any type of sugar, whether it's honey, whether it's fruit juice, whether it's apple juice concentrate, which is an added sugar, any type of sugar, anything that messes with the body is causing inflammation. You're recruiting signaling those white blood cells because they're like, well, what is this? This isn't good. This is inflammatory. And a whole host of situations occur because your immune system immediately becomes depressed for a couple of hours, and it really reduces its ability to function well. It dehydrates your cells. So, when you're not, I don't know if you've ever had an ice cream and you're thirsty afterwards. That's an example of that. It depletes electrolytes. And it promotes cancer cell growth for a lot of types of cancer, not all. Sure. And it damages tissues. We can go into inflammaging if you want, or glycation. But these are just examples. There's so many more of the damage that sugar can create. Yeah. And so, for example, when you ingest sugar, you immediately spike your blood sugar super high, and then it drops super fast, much like throwing a ball high up into the air and watching it fall rapidly to the ground. That's your blood sugar on sugar, right? And that's inflammation in action right there. And you think about how many times somebody does this a day. If you're eating sugar every day, you're eating an excess amount of sugar. Yeah. And so when this happens, when it hits the ground, when your blood sugar hits the ground, what does your body want to do? It wants to create balance. So it brings that blood sugar level back up to normal after you have that candy bar, right? So when our blood sugar drops after eating sugar, which is the natural response, it's an up and down. And when it hits down, we automatically run for that candy bar to bring it back up. And so it's a vicious cycle, really. So you eat sugar, you like it, and then you begin to crave it. It has this addictive component to it that makes you want more. It's not just physical either, as we all know. Oh, definitely. There's the emotional addiction as well to sugar foods and sweet foods. And so it's when you ingest sugar, you have a dopamine hit. They've, as you mentioned in your early on in what you said, the brain imaging between sugar and cocaine is virtually the same in the same area of the brain. So that is not good, because this equals addiction. And you have a massive amount of insulin secreted to drop that blood sugar level in the blood, and that's not good either. And then, these high insulin levels, you're disrupting satiety signals. Your body is not able to tell if you've had enough to eat. So it's kind of like, if you eat a piece of cake, you don't feel that full. Or if you have any type of sugar, it encourages cravings as well, hunger and cravings. That's unfortunately, that happens when you have that low blood sugar point.
Yeah.
And it causes that increased appetite. And this cycle then just gets repeated.
Right.
And it's really frustrating for so many. And they don't understand what's really going. They know that there's something up, right? Because I knew it. I was addicted to sugar in college, so.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So,
yeah.
But you probably didn't realize that at the time. You didn't, right? You
I
just
did.
knew that you did realize it.
Yeah, I did, because, I've always had an interest in health. And so I said, this isn't right, me wanting this sugar every day. And I knew the health effects of it, even way back then. And, but grew up on, Captain Crunch and Sugar Smacks and all the Fruit Loops and all that.
Yes.
But
me and the Captain. Me and the Captain had a date every morning.
A good relationship.
Right? Very, very nice. When I was like probably around that age 10 to 12, it was all about the Captain. So
I know, me too.
I understand that stuff it really is addicting. And I really want to drive that point home too, especially for parents. If you're feeding your kids, if you're starting out their day every day, because it's easy, you get a box of sugar and you pour some milk over it and then here you go. And, how is that any different than, giving them a bowl of ice cream every morning? Most people wouldn't do that, but that's really not any different. The same effect is happening, right?
That's a really great point, Loree. Yes. And, and it's a double whammy as well, because not only are they getting the sugar, the high sugar, but they're also getting refined carbohydrates, which are just as bad in the body, you know, and it's, for a lot of people, they may go, oh no, seriously? And, they have no idea that, I'm feeding my child this. And that's normal because a lot of people don't know what, they see that it says healthy on the box and it says it's fortified with all these vitamins and nutrients. Well, these nutrients legally have to be put back in. They're not put in enough and they're synthetic. And so it's not, the body doesn't, it's not as bioavailable to the body, these synthetic.
Yeah, nutrients. It's all manufactured. It's all a manufactured food stuff with components put back in that are synthetic, like you say. And then it's, made to taste really good and put in an attractive box and put on the shelf. And there you go. It's not real food. And back to I want to talk a little bit more about the whole addictive nature because I think people just don't connect the dots that sugar, basically, as you started to say earlier as well, it induces the same responses, right, in the region of our brain. That's our reward center. And the same way that nicotine does, cocaine, heroin, alcohol. So really what people don't even realize they're doing, they don't know, but to themselves and to their kids, is they're setting up an addiction that's as powerful as those substances that they would never think of giving their kids. They're setting them up for a lifetime of struggle. Yeah. And they don't know why.
Right. And that's why awareness is key. Awareness for both parent and child and adult, and no matter what your age, it doesn't matter. The minute you stop ingesting sugar, added sugars, your life will change. If you're struggling with, energy levels, fatigue, you can't lose weight, you have a lot of belly fat, et cetera. Yep. Yeah. You're aging faster than you would like to. These are all signs of excess sugar in the body. And one of the things that, is going to change that is to begin to stop ingesting this toxin, which is exactly what this is. And once you do, and it takes about a week for most people, and it's not that horrible. The first day or two is not fun because you're used to having that sugar 24/7 if you wish. And but when you make the decision that you want to change your health and your health and life will change.
Yeah.
And that's the most important component. Really, to get anything out of today's information, I think that's really important to know.
Definitely. And I think too, when I work with clients, I think a key component is to make sure that when you're going to stop sugar, or at least, do a 90% reduction, that you also at the same time have your alternative plan in place so that you have something to go to when you start to feel the craving come in. And a lot of people will finally come to realize that if they change the rest of their diet so that they're eating food that is really healthy and nutritious, so that they're getting fed at the cellular level, the cravings just automatically diminish because your body is being fed properly. Your cells are being fed. So they're not telling you, feed me. And then you, mistake that signal of feed me for, I want sugar.
Yes, that's really, really, really important, because when you create a plate, if you will, what you put into your mouth will really drastically reduce those sugar cravings. And if you do targeted supplementation. So, creating a plate that is high in fiber and healthy fat and protein, those three types of foods actually balance blood sugar. And so if you remember what I said, when our blood sugar drops, what do we want to do? What does the body want to do? It wants to bring it back up. And so eating this way, healthy fats like avocados, egg yolks, olive oil, these kinds of foods balance the blood sugar. And when you add in protein to that meal, any type of protein, you are going to further balance the blood sugar. Fiber naturally is fantastic. It is the only food that isn't broken down into sugar. It is digested by our gut bacteria, and they love it, and they create really special compounds that optimize our health and our gut health. And as we know, sugar, if we ingest sugar, we're feeding the really bad, unhealthy gut bugs. That's their source of food. Sugar and refined foods are the go-to food for these unhealthy gut bugs. And unfortunately, because we have a nation of mostly overweight people, 78% overweight and obese, and the people that are overweight and obese have less variety of healthy gut bugs. And part of the problem is that they have less variety, and they also have less of them, right, of healthy ones. They have a lot of the bad ones. And again, these bad ones crave sugar. So when you get a sugar craving, believe me, it's not just you craving that sugar. They need to be fed. So the only way to really change your gut health to healthy, to create an abundance of healthy gut bugs so that you can lose weight and stop craving sugar so much, is to take away the bad gut bug source of fuel, of food. Let them go away. Kick them to the curb.
Yeah, starve them out.
You don't need them. Right. And so when you have an abundance of healthy ones by eating foods, lots of vegetables which are high in fiber that they love, and prebiotic fiber, I call it fertilizing your gut garden, right? So you want to pull the weeds, which is getting rid of the bad bugs, by stop feeding them and ingesting foods that feed them. And then you want to fertilize with these really healthy prebiotic fibers like artichokes and onions and leeks, beans, things that are high in fiber, but a specific type of fiber. And then you want to make sure that you take a probiotic supplement as well, just for assurance that you're getting healthy gut bugs, healthy gut bacteria. So, or healthy bacteria, not gut bacteria. But so when you create a healthy gut, you are doing your 90% of your immune system resides within your gut. We know that 90% of the serotonin made is not made in our brain, it's made in our gut lining. And our weight is directly connected to the abundance and health of our gut bacteria and the variety of. And, our energy levels, everything that is important in terms of our health, our brain health, our weight, our immune health, is all resides within the gut. And so when we eat sugar, it not only feeds the bad gut bugs, but it also breaks down the lining, the very, very important lining in the gut.
Oh my God. Yeah. So it's so far beyond just having excess weight. I mean, we're really talking about the intricacies of the functionality of your body. And if you want to feel like you have, if you want to feel like you have good health, if you want to feel energetic and vibrant, and feel like you're thriving, you have to be super, super cognizant of all of these hidden ways that sugar is getting into your system. It's just, yeah. So, and let's talk a minute about artificial sugars and sweeteners, because they may not affect everything the same as other forms of like cane sugar, but they still have a really bizarre effect on our body. So do you want to speak to those for a minute, artificial sugars and sweeteners?
Yes, definitely stay away from those, because artificial sweeteners, because they're just awful, okay? They're just, you don't even look at them. They're a neurotoxin for one. But in terms of how you operate daily, again, you are bumping up your insulin level with most people. It is disrupting, as I mentioned earlier, with typical sugar. It also disrupts the satiety signals. There's caloric dysregulation that's involved. Again, you're not, when you eat it, your body cannot sense that it's eaten enough food, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So that's why it's so important to stay away from those, not to mention that they're chemicals, all right?
Yeah.
And there are other types if you want artificial sweeteners that aren't toxic. So if you want natural, healthy sweeteners, you can look to stevia, is one. Monk fruit sweetener is one of my favorites. Swerve is another one. You can look to one that I've been reading a lot about lately, and I've tried some of the products with this sugar, is called allulose. And there's a lot of research out there showing that it actually does help people lose weight. It helps stop hunger and cravings, and that's really, ideally, that's what we want. We want to stop the insulin resistance that happens with excess sugar. We want to balance that blood sugar. So these are three really healthy. Erythritol is one, and xylitol. Those are two sugar alcohols that can cause tummy troubles if you have too much.
Too much,
so those
okay.
Those two sugar alcohols. So those are replacements, right? Swaps for non-caloric, not so high calorie, and that are healthy, right? So, it's just be mindful, though, of depending upon something sweet all the time. So my goal for your listeners is to really try to get away from having to have something sweet all the time. That's your goal, really. You'll be so happy and proud of yourself when you realize you've gone the whole day without having any sugar and you didn't even really notice it at all.
Exactly. And I think that's the whole thing, to get to the point where it didn't even occur to you to have,
that's
to want it.
Liberating point right there.
Yeah.
Because sugar has a really strong, powerful hold on most people. And, and this is what worries me, because, I think about people that have sugar every day, and you cannot feel the effects right away. It's subtle. It takes years, and unless you have an enormous amount in one sitting, you're not going to be able to tell.
Right.
So when you ingest sugar through the years, something called advanced glycation end products occur, right? Or ages, as it's so aptly named, because it promotes faster, quicker aging, wrinkly skin, sagging skin. And it doesn't happen just to the tissues on the outside of our body, but to the tissues on the inside of the body as well. So it takes a period of time, but it's happening as we speak, right? With each mouthful of sugar, it's happening. You're creating that inflammation in the body, or inflammaging, as it's so often called. And this inflammaging can actually be, it's part of one of the hallmarks of aging, the theory of the hallmarks of aging, but it can be mostly prevented by stopping the glycation process. So what happens is when you ingest sugar, proteins and sugars come together and they create this chemical reaction. And it's called the browning effect. It's essentially the caramelization of bodily tissue. Much like you've seen, on the stove, the crispy browned potatoes, or, that crispy fried chicken. That's caramelization. That's glycation right there. That same effect is going on the inside of your body as well. And again, we can't feel it until sometime down the road. But it emerges as something very not healthy. I think about, President Ronald Reagan, who loved his Jelly Bellies, right? He loved those things, and he would eat them all day at his desk. He had a big jar of them on his desk, and he ended up passing away from Alzheimer's disease. Yeah. And, and as you mentioned in your on your intro, it was, it's now being looked at as type 3 diabetes. Alzheimer's is correlated with sugar intake.
Yeah. And again, I just feel like we can't stress this enough. All of this sugar, it's not just about the fat on your body, you guys. This is affecting your brain. And Alzheimer's, to me, that is one of the scariest things. Any form of dementia as you age is one of the scariest things that I feel a person would have and their family would have to deal with. And it's now being shown that sugar is definitely related to that process of getting dementia or Alzheimer's. And that scares the hell out of me. I mean, I'm going to be doing everything I can to make sure that, I'm preventing going down that path, because it just seems like a horrible nightmare and a terrible way to, go through those years, the later years in your life, not to mention.
If you have,
family.
If you have anybody in your family with dementia, it just seems that you would want to pay attention to your own sugar intake, because the sugar it opens up the blood-brain barrier, right? It depletes the brain of trace minerals, and it allows toxins and other heavy metals to accumulate in the brain tissue.
Yes.
So that's another really important reason not to eat excess sugar. There's so many that, for example, if you are under a lot of stress and anxiety, sugar should not be your go-to, even though a lot of people use it for comfort food. It's only comforting for a short period of time, and then it's done. And its long-term effects are stress, anxiety, and another thing that is really important, I don't want to forget to mention, is that it depletes the body of glutathione, which is really important in the body. It's the master antioxidant, key antioxidant for every cell in the body, almost every cell in the body. So very important to make sure you have enough of that. Sugar impacts your vitamin C and your vitamin E levels. So you can see, as we're talking, all of the powerful effects that sugar has on the body.
Right.
And people don't understand. They don't understand.
Yeah, they don't. And it's, if they're going to try to do a little bit of research, there's so much information and there's so much conflicting information out there that it's overwhelming, and it actually makes people not sure what way to turn.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really important, to make sure that you're getting information that's credible, look who you're getting your information from when you're researching online, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I'm telling you, it's really bad. So be careful about that. But when it go ahead,
Yeah, well, and when it comes to people trying to discern, I guess is the word I'm looking for, what is okay for them to eat, and they look at a package of something on the shelf in the store, and you know, they're fooled by the words that have lost their true meaning, like, you know, natural. It's natural, so it must be okay, or it says it's low fat or low calorie, so it must be okay. But they don't turn the box around and look at the nutritional, you know, panel on the back, or they don't read the list of ingredients. So they don't really know that those words are absolutely meaningless, and they're meant to just market to you and fool you so that you buy the product. Right.
And that's why one of the only things you can do to protect yourself and your family is to flip that package over and to look at the ingredient list. And so whether you're if you're in North America, in Canada rather, you won't have an added sugars box, which makes it really easy to detect. But you still have to look at the ingredient list. And if sugar is in the top 3 right there, don't buy it. Okay. Yeah. I personally wouldn't buy it anyway, because this is what you're trying to do. In the United States, they have an added sugars box, right? So it'll say added sugars. And if it says 0, you're good to go. That's really important. So make sure that you definitely stay off the added sugars. And if you can't tell if there's any added sugar, just go with your gut. If it's in the top tier of ingredients, when you look at the ingredient list, don't buy it. It's not worth it. Right. And then just get familiar with the most common names of sugars, because there are 80 different ways that they can refer to sugar. And you may not recognize that, dextrose is sugar, or it may say corn syrup. Right. Yeah. Yes. High fructose corn syrup sounds healthy. Corn, fructose, right? Well, it isn't. Yeah. And by the way, for your listeners, honey is, people say, well, what about honey? And they get so mad at me because it's like, yes, it has a lot of really healthy nutrients in it. And I highly recommend it, Manuka honey, if you're feeling unwell. So if you have a cold or the flu, a half a teaspoon is all you need, okay? But who uses a half a teaspoon of honey? Nobody. Yeah, they just that's a very tiny bear. Right, they're squeezing the bear, right? And I have a client who his triglyceride was as high as I've ever heard in my life, and it was really, truly only due to the amount of honey he was using in his tea. And once we got him off the honey, his triglyceride went back to normal, his triglyceride level. Wow. So it shows you the impact honey has on the liver, because remember, fructose, which honey is metabolized in the liver. An excess amount is going to create a fatty liver. Okay. Good to know, because I think, you're right. People think since it's natural, then it's fine and there are no limits kind of thing. And that's not right. True either. And another tip is anything ending in OSE, O-S-E, that's a sugar. So, but don't, there's, for example, lactose is a natural sugar in yogurt. So if you're buying plain yogurt and it says it has 6 grams of sugar, that's fine. It's naturally inherent within the product. It's not added. It's, if it's plain yogurt. Yes, right? Plain yogurt, right. Yeah. Not the fruit flavored stuff. Stay away from that. Yeah. That's just, there's more sugar in a candy bar than a candy bar. So, right. Yeah.
Got it. So how much sugar is too much? I mean, if people are saying, does that mean I can never have anything ever again with sugar in it, or I'm just going to wreck myself? Or is there, what do we share with our listeners that would give them a little something like, okay, something like this on this occasion is not going to harm you? What do we think the parameters are?
Well, once in a while is fine. I do once in a while. That's
Sure.
No problem. Because once you're off sugar, like I've been for decades, your body is insulin sensitive. And all sorts of good things happen to your health when you become insulin sensitive. It is perhaps the best marker of optimal health there is. So insulin sensitivity is what you're after. So once you've gotten off of sugar and you're good to go, and you know that by taking, whatever, some of that dessert or holiday, whatever, is not going to kick you out of the no sugar commitment you made, then you're definitely good to go once in a while. Don't worry about it. But if you're in the process of losing a lot of weight and you're trying to get off sugar, definitely do not use it during this time. So if you need some help transitioning off, use a supplement or two called Chromium Picolinate. People who use a lot of sugar are typically deficient in this mineral, and people in general are typically deficient, and it's very effective. Within 3 days, you will see a marked reduction in sugar cravings. And alpha-lipoic acid is another one that's really beneficial, glutamine. There are many out there, but the ones I mentioned are very, very powerful in helping you. And so just transition with that and with those sugars, those healthy sugars I mentioned. But again, I want to remind your listeners to not depend upon the sweet taste all the time. Get used to what things should taste like, because your taste buds will go back to normal. Right now, they're on steroids, right? Your requirement for sweetness gets more and more as time goes on. And once you transition off, you're going to see when you taste something that has added sugar in it, it's unbelievably sweet. But to someone who eats sugar every day, it isn't very sweet at all.
Yeah, they're kind of desensitized, right? Just like if you eat a lot of salt.
Right.
Sure.
Exactly.
Oh, it's so fascinating. So we really want to stress it's not, for listeners that have been struggling with this, it's not your fault. It's not that you're lazy, right, or don't have any willpower. You just have to be aware that you're being tricked. Your body is being tricked. And actually, on that point, this is something I did want to mention. There was a tweet that really caught my eye, and I wanted to share this with people that you had sent out. It's been a few weeks ago now, but I made a note of it. You said, food engineers create foods so tasty, so perfectly engineered to get us to not just like them, but to want more and more of them, creating what is referred to as the bliss point in processed packaged foods. So let's just drive that point home a little bit more for people about food engineers and the goal of the bliss point.
Yeah, that's really what part of the problem is. So these food manufacturers, they know exactly what we love, right? They know that, number one, we're born hardwired to love sweet things. And back in, a long time ago, when we didn't have access 24/7 to sugar and sweetness, we would come across, say, a hive or, some berries, and that would be our sugar intake. But as you can see, as I mentioned early on, the progression from 1700 to now is incredible. So you think about 156 pounds of added sugar that the food manufacturers are adding every single year. This is just the average, okay? So they know it. They know exactly how to make that right specific bliss point so that we want more and more. They want to drive those sales. So that's their goal. And there are actually people out there called food engineers that know exactly how to do that. And, and that's why it's very important to protect yourself by reading the ingredient list. It sounds horrible, boring, and, a pain in the neck, but it really is one of the most important things you can do for your health.
Yeah, and your kids, you guys that have that are feeding families, and you have youngsters. You really do them a service as well as yourself by trying to get into the habit and just making it a lifestyle to read about what you're eating and what you're feeding them, because knowing that there is a very specific effort being made to make sure that you are addicted to certain products and that your kids grow up being addicted to those products so that they can sell them. It's a business.
It doesn't stop at sugar. It does not.
No.
All those corn chips and cheese chips and crunchy things, that same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Know exactly what to do. And, and that goes in line with, when you're creating a life without sugar, everything changes. It optimizes your health. You'll have more energy to work out. You'll be more motivated to work out. You won't need sugar for everything to provide that energy for you.
Right.
It's just really a much better way to live. I've done it both ways, and I can promise you that this is the way to go.
I love it. So let me ask you, take you in a whole other direction. I like to ask my new guests to share a going rogue story if they have one. Maybe something about like a time when you went your version of going rogue. You bucked the status quo, or you did something very radical or unprecedented by your own standards, and you made a decision to go in a direction that maybe was scary or challenging, but it ultimately had a positive impact on the course of your life. Do you have a story like that you can share with us?
Yes, I do. So I, originally was counseling at-risk families for a long time, and my interest in health was always there. I was always really involved in nutrition and doing things like that for my clients, their families. And so I noticed that when I would literally make out grocery lists for my clients, that their behavior changed, their motivation changed, they became nicer people, and their children's attitudes changed as well. So, those were real life examples for me. And so I became vice president of family outreach, and then decided that I would leave that job and create my own company. So I went back to school, got my nutrition degree, got my life coaching degree, all with the intent of using my background in psychology, my nutrition background, and my life coaching background to become a coach, if you will, for people who need to create better health and lose weight. And that's what I did, and I've been doing it ever since. And the thing about that is that I did it when I was in my 40s.
Okay, gotcha. I was waiting for the hitch there. Because normally that would be something that most people would be starting on that path in their probably early 20s, mid 20s.
Right.
So it's always a little bit more of a rogue move when you get into your 40s and you're like, I don't know, is it too late? Should I be taking this big risk, life changing path? So I get it.
Yeah, it was really it was very stressful, because you think about being, in your late 40s, creating a whole new business, going back to school, the whole thing was just stressful, but it was my passion. And I had been wanting to do that for a long, long time, and finally did it. So
nice. I love it. So what little nugget would you share about the value of going rogue to people?
I think don't be afraid. Just do it, because you think about, you don't want to look back on your life with regret. You don't want to be so afraid that you're not reaping the benefits. So for me, my passion has always been health, even as a young girl, and it really motivated me. Always has, and it always will. And so because I did what I did, I love what I do. So it's not work at all. It's just what I love to do. Yeah. And I've done both. I've done the long hours every day. I've done the grind, if you will. And so I know exactly what it all is. But if you love it, then that's a whole different story.
Yes.
If you don't love it, don't be afraid.
Perfect. I love it. Awesome. So where can people find out more about you and your books and your services? Why don't you share that information, please?
Sure. Thank you. My website is drlorieshemek.com, and there's a lot of information, health, nutrition, mindset information on that site. And you can find me on Twitter at Loree Shemek, on Instagram, Dr. Loree Shemek, and on Facebook, Dr. Loree Shemek. And every day I post actionable information that people can really use, practical information. So in my books, you can find them on Amazon, all three, or wherever books are sold.
Perfect. Awesome. So this was fabulous. I thank you again for spending this time with us. And I would love it if you'd be willing to come back and talk about inflammation, because I think that we could fill a lot of time just on that subject alone. And I know it's very, very much connected with this, but there's a whole lot more. We didn't even really scratch the surface on that. So I'd love to have you back.
I would love that. It would be an honor. Thank you, Laurie.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laurie. I really appreciate it. Come back soon.
Same here. Take care.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me and Dr. Laurie today. Now that you know even more about the detrimental effects of sugar, I hope that you feel like you're more able to just make wiser, better choices about the food that you eat and what you're feeding your family. Sugar, it's a hidden ingredient in foods that you would never expect would contain it. And it's a prime ingredient in so many pretty foods. Those are the obvious ones, but it has such an ugly side. No one can deny that it is delicious. We all love to have our treats now and then, but too much is extremely, extremely destructive to health. It's cheap, but the cost to our health is exorbitant. It's one of the biggest and the ugliest monsters in the processed foods industry. It's right up there next to processed oils, which are horrifying. I talked a lot about processed foods in episode 71, and I talked about processed fats and oils with basically the world expert in episode 72. So if you missed them, I invite you to go back and check those episodes out. Also, there's a fantastic documentary called Fed Up that's brilliant and talks a lot about sugar. So I would encourage you to find that as well. Now, if you need a little help trying to reduce the amount of sugar in processed foods in your diet, please go ahead and check out Dr. Loree Shemek's site. And also you can head over to my site, LorieBischoff.com. You can check out the Food Print Plan. It is a blueprint for helping you create a healthier eating lifestyle. You can also download my free guide to help you manage aging like a boss while you're there. Make sure to subscribe to We're Talking Shift if you haven't already. And if you found this episode valuable, please take a quick minute to give it a rating. I would be very appreciative. Help spread the good shift around by sharing it with your friends. And until next week, stay feisty, my friends, stay healthy, and go make some epic shift happen in your life. You too, Gary V.
The preceding podcast was a TJ DeSantis production. Comments, questions, and inquiries can be directed to DeSantisProd@gmail.com.